Hey, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our VFX core skills for beginners. First of all, we do have another special guest. We have Stanley. He's a little baby, but he licks a lot. But yeah, say hello to Stanley. But yeah, in this tutorial we're going to be going into ZBrush and sculpting up a little bit of detail. This is not a full-on sculpting tutorial. This is just, let's just make our model less boxy and give it a little bit more natural look. This is just going to be a very quick sort of sculpt. It's not going to be anything complicated or anything like that, and mostly just have fun with it. Like it's more just to get your hands on the software and playing around with it. But don't worry, and just have fun with it. And we're just going to go through and do some really basic sculpting and make it look less boxy and mathematically correct. But yeah, if you've enjoyed these tutorials so far, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this. So I've got ZBrush open. You can be using Mudbox or any other. I'm not sure if there is. If Sculptress is still about. I don't know. I've always used ZBrush. But yeah, so what we're going to do, we're just going to import in our model that we exported. You might see this when you open it. Just click on Lightbox and that'll remove it. So this is not a full-on ZBrush tutorial. It's just a very quick sort of overview of what we can do to make it look a little bit nicer. But maybe we'll do some more in-depth ZBrush tutorials, but this one's going to be super basic. So the first thing that we want to do is, so we'll do the most common thing. You've probably already clicked in the viewport loads of times in this, so we don't want to do that, because we're just going to create loads and loads of squares. So, because when you click it, so if we had a cylinder 3D and you selected it, you need to make sure that you're in edit mode to edit it. But let's not do that. But anyway, so what I'll do first is actually fix this framing. So I'm actually just going to go to my new document up at the top and just select new document. No. So we've got a new document and it's reframed everything. So I'm just going to go to import at the top right. And I'm just going to go to that folder where I exported out my mesh for ZBrush, which was in Birdbox project, data, base mesh, and Birdbox base mesh. Click open. And nothing will happen because you've selected it in your Lightbox tools. So you need to left click and drag. And only do it once. If you click again, you'll just make another one. And you'll be making bird boxes for days. So if I undo that, as soon as you make one, select edit. That means now we're in the edit mode and we can rotate around and have a look. So if we turn on our poly fill here, where we can see our polygons, we can see we've tried to like subdivide this to more squares, but if we subdivide it more, which will go to our geometry, and you have divide, and you can see that it's subdivided it and divided it again. Why is that not? There we are. And now it's subdivided it again, and you can see that our active points and poly is has gone up considerably. So we're not going to, this is not like a full-on sculpting tutorial, we're just going to make this look less boxy and a little bit nicer. So if we go up to the top left here, we can see that we've got our stroke. So if you click on that, and this is basically says drag rectangle, freehand, spray, and this is how it's going to basically apply. So if I clicked on that, it's going to be in a dotted motion. You can't see it because it's so large. And if I go up to the top, you can select your draw size and intensity, and you can see now, you can sort of see up at the top here, it's done it in dots. So we don't want that. We can go to freehand, and now this means that it's going to just be a freehand and it's just scribbling on it. So the first thing that I want to do is probably break up all these edges, because you can look at them and you go like, imagine if this would, because it's easier to make it look old and weathered because you can make it look dirty and cover things in dirt. But this wood looks like it's freshly chopped straight out of the mill, and it looks brand new, and it looks too nice. So we're just going to make it look not so nice. So what I like to do, and what probably most sculptors like to use, they use like clay build-up and clay. So for this, I'm actually just going to use the clay because I don't really want to build it up. I just want to use the sort of shape that it creates. So if you click off the model, it will rotate round. If you hold Alt and left click, it will translate. If you hold Control, left click, it will create masks. If you hold Control, right click, and it will zoom in. So it's a bit tricky to get used to at first. Even sometimes I'm just a little bit like, I don't like it so much because it's Control, right click to zoom in. Then left click out off it, and Alt, left click to move around. So I'm just going to go up to here and change my draw size and reduce my intensity. If I press Alt, you can see how it brings up a minus. So I want to subtract it, because if I bring it out, I'm effectively growing the wood, and I don't want that. So I want to soften these edges. So I'm just going to hold Alt and just use it. We can leave it on stroke. It means it's not. So if we have it on freehand, it's just going to be constant. But have a play around with those and see what we get. But at the moment, all we're going to do is just very roughly break up these edges. And if you can see, like, you can see how it's subdivided because we're not in like complete squares. This is why making sure your subdivisions, because this is subdividing, you can see these quite large rectangles, and if we change this sculpt on this, it's not as nice, but it's usually okay. So I'm just going to break up all these corners. I don't want this to be a very long one because this should be a fairly quick tutorial, but this is not. This is how you do ZBrush. This is just a quick sort of taster, I guess, to sort of break stuff up. And our first sort of step when we're doing this is just, we don't want to go straight into high res details because I'm actually on quite a low poly count at the moment. So I just want to get my sort of blocking wearing, because I don't want to go straight to like a billion polys, because it could be just unnecessary, and it's just good practice to do your base shapes. Like you do it in chunks. You don't do it all. You don't just subdivide it and do everything all at the highest resolution. Do it in like a stepped fashion. But so it's actually. Maybe it would have been easier to bring these in separately in separate pieces, but if you hold Shift and left click, that'll smooth. So if you've done something, you can just smooth it out. But like I say, this is not going to be a this is not a full-on tutorial. It's just, let's just break this edges up. And you can probably tell that I don't use ZBrush that often because I'm using a mouse. So it's not, I haven't got my Wacom set up as of yet. Oh, it's just been in a drawer for a while. But I need to get a new pen. This is not so much fun just on a... So you can go quite rough and just smooth it out. But don't get too insane. Obviously it's still got to look like it's still able to stay in the tree. So don't go too mad. We just want to break it up. And like you're saying, you probably could do this in the modeling, but just think how long this would take. It would take absolutely ages pushing and pulling vertices, where it's just, you can just sculpt it up. It's a much easier sort of process. And you can probably spend more time on this, get as much detail in as you want. Most of the detail for this will be coming from the textures, so this is mostly to break up the sort of hard edges. Ooh, make sure it's minus. So I'm going to do this pretty much for all of it. And like I say, you don't have to use ZBrush. You could be using Mudbox, but obviously if you do have ZBrush, it's a lot easier. It's quite hard with the softening of the edges here, but so I hope you guys have been enjoying these tutorials. I hope they're not too long. I know the other ones were like quite long and probably not that appealing to sit there for quite a while. So that's why I'm trying to do them quicker and do these little mini projects. Because I hope this is like some stuff that you can sort of elaborate on, and like you don't have to follow what I'm doing. You can just, this series is just like a get going, basic understanding of most of the processes that go into visual effects. And once I would definitely think this is probably the best thing if you're interested in VFX. I would sit through all of these tutorials. They're not all that long. Some of them are only 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I think the longest one's probably just about an hour. But after you've gone through them, then you want to like see which one you enjoy the most. The reason for this is because not all the time that you'll be doing everything in the pipeline. You'll be doing something that you really want. So you want to get a good understanding of most things in the pipeline, but specialize in an area. That's where you're going to be the most valuable. So you kind of always want to be a generalist with a specialist skill. But this also kind of opens up to sort of, because you may not know what you want to do. So if you did this whole series, you're going to get a taste of pretty much 99% of all the pipeline and get a really good understanding of how VFX works and what goes into it, and all the time that gets spent on it. So I'm just looking around for any sort of edges that I've missed here. And I'm not too bothered about being clean and rough because I kind of want to break it up. And you can already see now it's kind of looking a little nicer. It's obviously quite soft, but we can change that up. This is just our first sort of iteration. So I kind of want to also break this up because I can imagine birds coming in and out of it. The edge is going to be a bit worn. It's not going to be perfectly flat. And like I say, you really want to follow, like the key to realism is following reference. But at the moment, I just want you guys to have fun and just play around. It's just a bird box. And I know it's just a simple thing, but modeling from reference is the most important thing that you can do. And I know I'm saying just have fun with it for now, because you may not be at the point where using reference is useful at the moment. You just want to get your hands around the software basically. And I don't want to. I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to do that on the next step. Cool. So we've got some. If we look at this now, we can see it's pretty. It's not. We can actually add some. It's not as sort of perfectly flat. Oh, we don't want to do that. So the reason we want to do this, what have we just undone? Oh, what's happened there? So it's undone all that. Oh, sorry, I cancelled it in it. Should have clicked OK. So we'll just quickly do that. We've got it on our way to high intensity. Just undo that because the intensity was a bit too high. So I still want there to be some sort of sharp edge there. I just want it to make it look like, obviously, there's been some sort of movement coming in and out. Maybe even, yeah. Okay, so break up that edge in there. Not that it probably matters, but cool. So if we now look at our bird box, we can see it's kind of, it's not amazing. It's not as mathematically boxy now, but it's in a sort of different area now where it kind of looks a little bit cartoonish. So this is where we want to sort of go to our next level of subdivision. Have we done that one down there? No, we haven't. We missed one. It's always good to check you've done all your edges. Cool, I know that's pretty rough, but I just want to try and get this done quickly. You can spend way more time on it if you want. Cool, so like I said, we're at a stage where it's kind of looking better, but a bit cartoony. So what we're going to do is going to subdivide it again. See our active points have gone up. I'm going to subdivide it again. So we're at now 1.5 million. And you can see how this is affecting our geometry. So we've kind of softened these edges, but now it's coming back with a bit more definition. You can see how we've made some wobbly bits here, so I'm just going to smooth it out. So the next brush I'm going to use for this, I don't want to go through all these brushes. The best thing you can do is just select a brush, sculpt something and see what it does. And if you type a letter in, it will find it. So what I want to use is actually fracture. Quite like using this sometimes. This was quite useful for this model. Just because it was a quick sort of break up stuff that worked kind of well. So I want to bring my intensity down. And if I hold Alt, sorry, you can see what it's doing. It's kind of breaking it up quite nicely. If I just draw along here, it's almost giving us a sort of a rough, sort of cut wood look. It's not perfect, but it's giving a small amount of detail that it looks like it's been roughly sawn. And this is the kind of stuff that you want to keep, you want to do when you're looking at reference and stuff. And I know I'm just doing it by eye at the moment, not using any reference, but you probably will. And it's up to you, really. Like I say, these are not... Oh, that's a bit too much. This is just to get you going and having a little play. So I just want to get my intensity nice, so it's not... So I can build it up instead of just doing it in one big go. Maybe a little bit more. And you can really just like go nuts with it. Don't worry. Like this is just a practice model, so we just bring our intensity up a bit and just. Let's just break up all these flat edges so it doesn't look so cartoony. And have a play with some of the other brushes. There might be some other more ideal ones. For this I kind of like that it's almost looks like sawn wood, but you can focus more wear on areas. Make sure you don't get any pinching because that could cause you issues. So. Undo that, so I've pinched it. So I'm just going to go through all the edges again and pretty much do the same things I did before. Just go around and just give it that little extra bit of detail. Oh, that's way too much. What was it? It might be alright. Probably is a little bit too much. Just bring our draw size down a little bit. You can see how we're kind of getting this, like it's not, albeit it's not exact, but it's something that's going to break up quite nicely. Like I say, most of the other textures will, most of the other sort of textures and shading will come from the actual texture as well. It's just nice to get a good base displacement on there as well, because then we can bake this all in substance and get some really nice details from it. But like I say, I'm not particularly focusing on anything too accurate. I just want to break it up and we'll do that. So yeah, just going to go around. Like, I'm not particularly fussed if it's not amazing. It's just going to, like I say, this is just a taster of ZBrush. And hopefully once you've gone through these sort of tutorials, you'll get an idea of where you really want to go. That's what most people do. Yeah, finally find out where they, what sort of area they really enjoy. It's kind of effectively like a mini boot camp for generalists. Because if you want to become a generalist, it's kind of stuff that, these are areas that you will probably need to know and sort of develop on. But it's, like I say, it's quite hard to become generalist because you have to sort of do a lot of self-teaching, and you basically have to learn like all this stuff really well, not just the basics, but have a really good solid understanding. But hopefully this should give you a good start and where you want to go. So most of this, even if it's looking a bit samey, most of this will be broken up into textures. So don't worry too much. Like I say, just have fun with it. Try things out. That's what it's all about. Cool, so let's break this up. So I imagine this has been pecked at and clawed at and all sorts. So we get some really nice breakup around there. You can see even though we're quite high poly, it's not high poly in all the areas. So if we did this part here, that's a bit too hot, tense. So let's just break this up. Let's just imagine, obviously, they're still on it and clawing at it. And obviously you can spend way more detail than I am spending on it. I'm just kind of doing it quite nasty. So I can smooth that out. It's probably smooth underneath. It's probably not so bad, but ooh. Yeah, getting a little bit too carried away. But cool. So we can, if you want to add more detail, we can divide it one more time, and it'll probably get to 6 million. So now, when we add more detail, will be just a little bit more defined. But it all depends on your computer, really. You don't want to be going too high, just in case it will crash. But it's entirely up to you how much detail you want to put into it. I'm not gonna go any higher in the detail for this. I don't think it needs it. Because it's just a bird box, and hopefully when you get around to your next projects, it just gives you a good idea of things that you need to do, or at least think about before you start your own projects. So I'm just going to add some more sort of detail in here. I know it's not amazing, but I say it was just basics for now. Let's give that back. Yeah, we're almost done, I think. So let's get some. Oh no, we've got all this down here still. Looks a bit too cartoony still. So how long are we in? Even half an hour. So I was hoping to get these done quite quick, but yeah, I guess it's one of those things that's done when it's done. And you know what, I'm not bothered about doing the back. I'm not really going to see it. Oh, I've gone over some bits, but it doesn't. We can add some rough detail on the bottom, like I say. I know that's pretty nasty doing that, but you'll spend way more time. And like I say, we're just doing rough breakup. Just press F to center on it. So I'm only working on the edges because most of the other detail will come from textures. I don't want to do that. Let me just change the intensity in some places so it's not so soft. And then some bits it's a bit extreme, but let's just check this top bit up here. It does look a bit soft. Cool, so we're pretty much done. Like, you can spend more time on this. I know it's not the best. It's broken it up a bit. It's made it look a little bit different. So what we'll do now is we'll just export out we can export this model out. So all we need to do is, before you do that, is because we need the lower res one as well. So if we go down to the reason why we need our lower res one, so if we look at this now, we can see how much this has changed since from our first model. So we need this to put into, oh my god, I've forgotten what it's called, substance. So this is now our new base mesh. We need to scroll down to export and deselect group, otherwise it will come in like a billion pieces. And we don't want that. So I'm just going to go export base mesh VO2. We'll call this Z base mesh, just so we know for sure. Then I'm just going to go to my maximum subdivision, because I'm just going to use this as well in substance. I keep forgetting what it's called. So I'm just going to export Z. It's not. We will make sure it's a Z mesh high, just so we know that's a high poly. Not version 23, version 3. So save. This might take a little bit of time, but or it might not. So it's processing through that. Well, it depends on how quick your computer is as well. I guess this might be quicker or slower, so. Cool, so make sure you save. Oh, it's still going. It's right in the OBJ. So it's not a super highly detailed model, and you can obviously go into way more detail with using more textured alphas, but this was literally just to break up the edges. So don't worry too much. If this is just beginners, to get it in, get it going, and see what we can do with it. Cool, so we've exported that out. So my ZBrush just crashed, and luckily we'd saved it all and exported everything out before. Yeah, it happens sometimes. Luckily it happened just after we had exported and saved. So make sure you do save and export your stuff if you haven't already. But yeah, so our next step is going to take this into Substance. And this has not been a ZBrush tutorial on how to do loads of things. It's just like a very quick sort of taster. And like, if you want to get more into sculpting stuff, there are tons of other tutorials, and I might do other ones on it later. But for now, this is just a very basic sort of just have a go and have some fun and just play around with it. it's kind of finding out where what you like in the pipeline. But yeah, so next step is take this into Substance and start texturing it. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.